Montana's news leader, this is the MTN 10 o'clock news.
Flames beneath your feet.
They're burning all the time.
It's a burning issue that's caused a whole lot of devastation above ground.
Affects everyone in eastern Montana.
We'll have more on what's bubbling below the surface as one man tracks it from above. And as a new wildfire season looms, one woman is raising concerns.
We're hopeful about our applicant pools, but we're not entirely sure when fire season starts, how many people will have in those positions.
How a firefighter shortage could affect Montana. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Russ Riesinger. As the temperatures warm up, so does our risk of wildfires. And there are concerns tonight Montana may not have enough firefighters to battle what could be coming. MTN's David J. spoke with a woman who sounded the alarm at the state capitol today as the state gears up for another summer of drought.
Hiring seasonal firefighters has always been a challenge, but it may be even more difficult this year. Management from some of the agencies that handle wildland firefighting testified in Helena. The DNRC needs about 100 summer seasonal firefighters to go along with its up to 180 full-time employees in the fire organization part of the agency.
We're not entirely sure how many people are going to be actually when fire season starts, how many people will have in those positions. So we're in the very beginning of the hiring process right now for our seasonal firefighters.
Sonia Gurman spoke at a legislative environmental quality meeting. She says the DNRC faces the same labor shortages seen in the private sector. In January, Governor Gianforte announced a minimum base pay increase of $1.70 to $15.50 an hour for seasonal wildland firefighters. But pay is just one of the challenges in hiring.
It is incredibly grueling and mentally and physically, and something that we're pursuing in the West is providing our firefighters more resources for especially those challenges with the mental health.
The Bureau of Land Management acting director also talked at the hearing about the hiring challenges.
We are struggling and have a challenge to find enough applicants for all of the positions that we have.
And while it's a challenge hiring for a longer fire season, it's the different agencies working together that make firefighting successful.
We have a 30-year agreement with DNRC and the Forest Service and BLM where we provide protection in places where one of us has manages lands.
It's difficult to know exactly what we're going to project. If we can get close to that number, we'll be incredibly happy, and if not, we'll figure out how to get the job done.
In Billings, David J., MTN News.
This is what's burning just below the surface in southeastern Montana. And it's something that has caused millions of dollars in damage, destroying land, homes, livestock, and livelihoods. Coal seams are a natural part of the geology here that can sometimes cause big problems when they catch fire. Tonight, we take a look at an effort to inventory just how many of these coal seams are burning in a 4-county area that includes Rosebud, Custer, Bighorn, and Powder River counties, where coal seam fires have scorched thousands of acres.
You know, I see the devastation it causes everyone every summer, across eastern Montana.
Wildfire season is not something most people give much thought to when the ground is covered with snow as it was just a couple of weeks ago. But under the surface, the threat of fire is always lurking across parts of eastern Montana.
They're burning all the time, so look at the one that we're looking at, you could just see the little whiff of smoke coming out of the ground, but on a hot summer dry day, it takes nothing for the fuels to ignite from these burning coal seams.
Corey Shagus has seen that time and time again as a volunteer firefighter and deputy DES coordinator for Custer County. The fires can burn for years, even decades underground before rearing up. Remember the Richard Spring Fire, the state's largest fire that scorched more than 170,000 acres last summer in Rosebud County?
You look at that fire, that was huge. It went from 0 to 170,000 acres in a matter of 3 days.
It was caused by a burning coal seam. In that big fire in Colorado that destroyed more than 1,000 buildings late last year, it too linked to an underground coal vein that had long been smoldering. Most often the fires begin underground by spontaneous combustion, but lightning and humans can also start them burning. Hard to believe that I'm actually standing on a fire right now. You can see some of the smoke here behind me. These coal seam fires are all over the place in eastern Montana, and knowing where they are could be a big help for firefighters and for property owners. How many of these burning coal seams there are and where they're located has been mostly a guessing game until now. But thanks to a grant from the Rosebud Conservation District, we'll soon have a better idea. Shagus has been going up in a small plane equipped with special equipment that picks up heat.
We could fly at 12,000 feet and we're picking up these hot spots like this here. It's pretty impressive.
They've been flying grid patterns over a 4-county area that includes parts of the Crow and Northern Cheyenne reservations, pinpointing GPS coordinates of hot spots from the air, then hiking into those areas like we're doing to see if they are indeed coal seam fires. Most are.
And it got us within 100 feet of every coal seam so far.
Well, the fires often can't be seen with the naked eye. You can clearly see them from the thermal imaging camera on Clint Peterson's drone that he's flying over us. He owns a company that helps mitigate coal seam fires and is also assistant fire chief in Broadus.
It's a disaster, you know. We're a volunteer fire department, but we're full-time firefighters from, about the middle of May all the way through October anymore, and largely because of this. So
it can be difficult, if not impossible, to get these underground fires out, but there are ways to mitigate them.
I do think if you got an excavator down there, you could dig this bank off and actually remove it. But most of them are in such rough country, or a lot of them are, that you can't get to them, and so you'd have to doze around it and take all the fuel away from it.
The hope is that once the coal seam fires are mapped, it will not only assist landowners and firefighters, but also make it easier to get federal help for this problem burning just below the surface.
Knowing where they're at is a start to the solution, because without knowing where they're at, how do you identify and show your need to the federal government of the problem we have here?
The Richard Spring Fire was the largest in the state, but the 2021 wildfire season was a devastating one for much of the state. According to the Northern Rockies Coordination Center, Montana saw nearly 2,600 wildfires last year, which burned around 748,000 acres. Nearly 1,900 of the fires were human-caused.
One of the challenges for people who fight wildfires is the increasing number of large fires. Here for the state of Montana, you can see virtually no fires over 1,000 acres in the early 80s. Of course, by the time we got to year 2000, that was a huge year for fires here in Montana. Almost 600,000 acres were burned, and you can see it's more consistent here in the last 20 years. For Wyoming, the big year, of course, was 1988, the wildfires down in Yellowstone National Park. But again, you can see that uptick, especially since the turn of the century. And for the western half of the country, we've been looking at warming temperatures and also more frequent wildfires all across the Rocky Mountain West off towards the northern portion of Wyoming. Forecast is coming up.
A local women's empowerment group selected Billings educators as the recipients of their top annual award today after what they called 2 extremely difficult years. The Zonta Club of Billings hung these signs at middle schools across the city, including Lockwood, as they honored teachers and staff with the 2022 Status of Women Award. They also handed out individual gift bags. The club, which has been around since 1950, looks for both men and women who look to empower and uplift women and girls in the community each year. They said juggling pandemic restrictions, student mental health, and a number of other challenges has put a burden on educators like we've never seen before, and that they are so appreciative of the folks who keep showing up and doing their best for kids.
The room was packed inside the Veterans Navigation Network in Billings on Wednesday as Montana Governor Greg Gianforte presented 5 veterans with commendations for their community service that they did after getting out of the military.
We didn't pick these individuals. They were nominated by other veterans who recognized them first for service to country and then to community.
One of the veterans honored was 75-year-old Army vet David Goslow from Laurel. He served 1 year in Vietnam, but the past 6 years have had him playing bugle at hundreds of military funerals in the Billings area.
I'm trying to do it as best I can, with as much respect as I can, because the gentleman that we're interning at the time Him and his family deserve that.
Another veteran honored was Corey Mordeau of Huntley. He served in the Army from 1955 to 1982, stationed in Korea and Berlin for the Cold War, along with time in Vietnam leading Special Forces soldiers. But he's also a valued Huntley community member who helps support other vets through the VFW.
No, the military good because they're really, like they say, a band of brothers. Your people are your people, and they stick up for you and they watch your back. You know? And we try to help other vets. That's our main goal, is to help vets that need some help.
Army vet Blake Furman deployed 3 times to Afghanistan between 2009 and 2013, but he's now a chairperson of Veterans Navigation Network in Billings, an organization that helps veterans exiting the service connect with VA benefits and other peer support. He was recognized for his work in helping about 200 local vets find a sense of community.
Catch them before they get into those moments of crisis so that suicide never even becomes an option. They're on their path to success. They have that camaraderie and that support and accountability from their mentor or from other veterans that they meet.
The other vets recognized were Chris Ingot and Frank Dahl, both from Billings. The group each received a state flag that was flown over the Capitol building in Helena. In Billings, Mitch Laggy, MTN News.
In national news, as the battle for Ukraine rages on, the U.S. government has determined that Russian forces have committed war crimes. The fighting in Ukraine is now 1 month old, and NATO estimates that Russia has suffered as many as 40,000 battlefield casualties, with up to 15,000 killed. And tonight, President Biden is on his way to Europe, where he'll attend an emergency NATO summit and discuss more military aid to Ukraine. The leaders will also look to agree on more sanctions, as well as tougher enforcement of existing sanctions. As of now, Ukrainian forces remain defiant in the capital of Kyiv, even as more bombardments target the city. Some sad news to pass along tonight. Madeleine Albright has passed away from cancer. Albright was a trailblazer, chosen as the first female Secretary of State in 1996. At the time, she was the highest-ranking woman in the history of the U.S. government. She served as the Secretary of State for the last 4 years of President Bill Clinton's administration, relentlessly working for peace in the Middle East. All flags will be flown at half-staff through Sunday in honor of Albright. She was 84 years old. Well, still to come on the MTN 10 o'clock news here on Q2 as we celebrate National Puppy Day. We meet one Laurel wolf dog who is hoping to fetch a national honor. That story coming up next. Then in sports, a draft day payday. A Broadview man is on the verge of making Montana history as the state's first professional video game player. We'll meet him in just a bit.
From Montana's news leader, you're watching the MTN 10 o'clock news.
Today is National Puppy Day, a day when we celebrate all our four-legged friends. And this wolf pup from Laurel is already looking to fetch a national honor at just 1 year old. Arlena Howder has the story.
Meet Segan, a wolf dog from Laurel who's in the running to become America's favorite pet. Not only are her owners hoping that she wins the online competition, but they're also hoping to erase the stigma surrounding wolf dogs and wolf hybrids.
There we are. Meet Segan, named after the Norse goddess of victory and triumph. She's not like any other dog you've seen before.
So she is predominantly wolf and Malamute, with wolf being her dominant DNA trait.
Roy and Beth have had the year-old wolf pup since she was just a couple months old. They've been training her to socialize and support elderly adults and special needs individuals.
Mainly her favorite thing, though, is to just snuggle and love on everybody.
There's a reason why the family lives in Laurel. Billings has municipal codes against any animal that has any wolf content or looks to be part wolf.
You can be issued an immediate summons to turn the dog over to animal control, to be euthanized, and or removed from the city within 24 hours at the court's discretion.
Roy and Beth are doing whatever it takes to educate the public on the unfairness of these municipal codes. And what better way to do so than entering Segan in America's favorite pet competition, a contest that partners with the Paws Foundation.
What the Paws organization does is they donate and help fund homing animals in need.
The foundation rehabilitates orphaned and injured wildlife, as well as shelters and adopts homeless cats and dogs. And Segan is holding her own in the competition.
Last I checked, was in first in the quarterfinals. She has to be in first by tomorrow afternoon at 7. to move on to the semifinals.
The winner of the contest will be announced on April 7th and will receive $5,000 and a 2-page spread in Dogster magazine. But the couple isn't just doing this for the money.
We really just want to use it as publicity for her to help build her ambassadorship and help change unfair wolf dog laws throughout the states. They can be euthanized if they're even suspected to have wolf in them.
And you can help spread awareness for wolf dogs by voting for Siegen online by clicking the link in this story.
How cool it would be to have one of the dogs here from Laurel in Montana win this whole national competition.
In Laurel, Alina Howder, MTN News.
Coming up in weather, beanie caps are out and jogging shorts are in this weekend. Ed's fashion forward forecast coming up.
The MTN 10 o'clock news continues right after this.